Thank you for joining CU Bands and Fans podcast. Our podcast is brought to you by Homegrown KIO. Homegrown KIO is on Sunday nights at 7 p.m. It is a stellar show featuring the great songs that have come from bands originating in Champaign-Urbana. Listen at 107.9 on your FM dial, at 1079wkio.com, or ask Alexa to play WKIO.
KIO Arcola Champaign-Urbana. Classic Hits 1079. Streaming at 1079wkio.com. Or ask Alexa for WKIO.
Hello, welcome to CU Bands and Fans podcast, where musicians tell their story. Here with my co-host, Zach Widdop. How are you, Zach?
Good. Hello.
Good. Glad you're back in town and getting ready to get your internet up and running again.
Yeah.
And our guest on this podcast is Sean Kutzko. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you all doing tonight?
We're doing good. So since the last time we had you on, which was maybe 6 months ago, maybe or less.
It was about a year, actually. It was about a year.
Oh my gosh, time. No way has that been a year. The lies. Anyway, at that time, we talked about how you archived a lot of jazz music and recorded a lot of the jazz scene in Champaign-Urbana at some of the, from way back. So this time we have you on because we want to talk about Silverweed, which is one of your bands, and Spaceport, and also your new venture at Krannert Art Center in Champaign.
Mm-hmm. That sounds
Take it away, Sean. Let's talk about Silverweed first.
Sure. What do you want to know?
First of all, Silverweed is I caught a live video. You guys were at the Rose Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. I have got to come and see you live. We had Jay Rosenstein. Am I saying his name right? Rosenstein?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. We had him on our podcast and we touched on Silverweed just a little bit. Mm-hmm. And so then, I seen that live video and I'm like, whoa. So what is Silverweed? What kind of music do you play? Mm-hmm. And where are you playing?
All right. So Silverweed, let's see. Silverweed got its start in the summer of 2019, and we can go into the gory details of that if you want.
That's pretty new.
Yeah, it's relatively new. Yeah. We primarily play at the Rose Bowl. We're starting to venture out into some other venues. We're certainly open to checking other venues out, but the band's general mindset seems to fit in well with what the Rose Bowl is doing over in downtown Urbana, and we just like it there. So we play there once a month, and let's see, we've got as in terms of what kind of music we play, we do some like I would say hippie country is a good way to describe it, with some good old classic rock and some country standards thrown in.
Jay does a couple of his Otis and the Elevators songs in there too.
He does. There is quite a bit of original material coming from Jay, and it's not just Otis era stuff. There's some newer things that he has written. I've got a couple of things that I'm writing that are still under works. But those hopefully will debut in the next month or two. So I've started writing again, which is good. I haven't really done much writing since the mid 2000s, like 2005, 2006. So we do original stuff. We do country, like I said, like hippie country. I like billing us as Champaign-Urbana's space cowboys. We're heavily influenced by the Grateful Dead, but we are not a Grateful Dead tribute band. We do lots
kind of like Surreal Deal. Yeah.
We play tunes from, we play Grateful Dead stuff, of course, because we all love them. And we play some Neil Young, we play some Bob Dylan, we play some Hank Williams. We go back and do some of the real old timey country stuff from the 1930s sometimes. We just like to mix and match it. We're looking at doing some Graham Parsons stuff, from the Byrds era, maybe some Flying Burrito Brothers, if we can get, one of the pedal steel guys to sit in with us from time to time. So, that's, it's that flavor of stuff with some original material thrown in as well.
Talk to Bob Watson about the pedal steel.
We got Bob, we got Dyke Corson, of course.
Yeah.
We played with both of them. Both of them have sat in with us from time to time. And, you know, it's always fun to bring in somebody who's not a formal member of the band, who like can bring in that extra voice that you don't normally play with, whether it's like a pedal steel or, you know, we've had, there's a phenomenal keyboardist here in town named Kurt Reeder, who is the king of the jazz piano and keyboard scene. And he plays with us from time to time when he has a slot available. He's in pretty high demand right now. So every now and then he'll sit in with us. So it's always exciting to bring in somebody else doing a guest slot from time to time, because bringing in a new voice, bringing in a new instrument that we normally don't play with, you can't help but have an interesting influence as a result of that. And our music is, you know, we like to do extended solos. We like to do some improvisational material. So having that extra voice come in and not be so squeaky clean, finely rehearsed like a lot of other bands are, that, you know, you kind of go out on the tightrope a little bit when you do that kind of material. And sometimes it is just absolutely fantastic. Sometimes you fall flat on your face. And, you know, taking that kind of a risk musically, that's exciting to me. And, you know, trying to find the line between being very well rehearsed and being able to let go and take a chance improvisationally. Like, I really like walking that line a lot.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It sounds like kind of improv,
Yep.
which is, I would embrace that totally. You know, that's one of the coolest thing. And Surreal Deal did the same thing.
Oh,
Didn't
yeah.
they?
Yeah. They would take a song, a Grateful Dead song, or Easy to Slip by Little Feat or something like that. And they had a huge jam in the middle of in their earlier days, the last 20 minutes or half an hour.
Yeah.
Everything was, you know, it was all unique. Next time they did it would be nothing like the last one they did or the next one they'll do.
Mm-hmm.
And they these days they've had shorter gigs, so they've shortened up the jams, but they still do them.
And Jesse Brown, the keyboardist that plays with us the most often, he plays in the Surreal Deal as well. So that's a very, you know, that was a very easy transition.
Oh yeah.
To have him slide in and start playing keys for us. That's, you know, that's a pretty funny story. We all wanted Jesse to play with us, to bring in that keyboard voice, because, you know, there's just nothing like playing with a keyboard. It's just fantastic. Especially if you're doing like roots music, you know, like roots rock, some Americana kind of stuff, you know, that extra voice of the keyboard really makes a big difference in the arrangements of the material. And we asked him, you know, look, do you want to be in our band? You know, we'd love to have you in our band. He said, no. But he's shown up at every gig for like 2 years now. So he's in the band, but he's not in the band.
It's a non-committed no.
Yeah.
I have a funny story about Jesse too. The Real Deal was playing at the Rose Bowl one night, and there was this guy who was visiting from Austin, Texas, and he said quite a few things, but he was a keyboard player, and he watched Jesse for a while. And I was talking to him, a couple of us were talking to him after that, and he says, I can't play like that. I can't figure out, he's either a freak or a genius or both. I don't know which.
He's a freenius.
Yeah.
I'm going to vote both.
Yeah.
So who is in, aside from those who come in and step in, or who is the base foundation of the band?
So the core of Silverweed is a trio. The core of Silverweed is Jay Rosenstein. He plays guitar and he sings lead. And he writes, you know, the bulk of the original material that we do. And then our bass player, we've kind of gone through a couple of bass players here recently. Our original bass player when we got started was a fine gentleman by the name of Jim Rowland, and he and Jay had been playing forever, off and on since I believe the late 90s, on pickup gigs here and there. You know, both have been in the music scene here for quite a while. And Jim was Jim has been battling some health issues, and unfortunately they've started to flare up a little bit more seriously, and he had to take a step back from the band. So he stepped down as bass player, which is, you know, that's got to hurt. You know, he's been playing bass forever, and certainly to have to walk away from something that you love doing, that just sucks. So, you know, we were very sorry to see Jim go. That really bit. But in his stead, a bass player by the name of John Tubbs stepped in, and John has been in town for quite a while, and he long time, and he you know, he's extremely versatile. He can play everything from bebop jazz to a bluegrass gig, and step right in and do rock and roll. And he's been playing for, you know, 40 some odd years, and he's rock solid, and it's just been a real good fit. And, you know, fortunately for us, under the circumstances of having a core member step back, the transition from Jim to John has been more or less seamless. And you know, all you can do is smile and say thank you at
that's amazing.
Like that. You know, we've been very lucky in that regard.
So this is the band that when we had Jay on our podcast that he was talking about, that kind of brought him back out of well, I don't want to say retirement, but just brought him back into playing live and writing again, and that sort of a deal. It's Silverweed that did that. And so how did that come about? Was it Jay or was it you?
You mean how did the band come together? Oh, okay. So I was living in Hartford, Connecticut I lived there for 12 years. I lived there from like 2007 to 2019. And when I was out in Connecticut, I was playing in, there were a few bands that I played in out there. I played in an Americana roots band called Rail Rider. And I played, I'm the drummer, by the way. I never really mentioned that. I played in a roots band out there called Rail Rider, and I played in an acoustic duet with a gentleman named Chris Gilbranson out there, and we did some acoustic duet stuff. I did a lot of solo acoustic guitar stuff, and just basically kept in the circle for, you know, for quite a while out in Connecticut. And it was never anything, you know, too big. You know, it was local bar band stuff, and it was fun, and we all had a good time. You know, I was working a full-time job out there, and I couldn't commit to being a full-time musician, but being able to do what we did out there was great. And I grew a lot. And I used to hang out at an open mic up there in Windsor, which is just about 20 minutes north of downtown Hartford. And it was a twice a week open mic night. And all sorts of people would show up there. You know, it's a standard open mic scene, you know, people who have been playing for 40 years and people who just picked up a guitar 2 months ago, you know. And in some ways I sort of ended up as the house drummer there, and being able to, you know, hear stuff that I've never heard before and step in and play something along it that sounded reasonably musical. You know, I did that for 10, 11 years, and that was a great musical education to be able to just do that.
Sean was also in a band called Spurious Emissions Band.
Yeah.
Sean and I are radio amateurs, and a bunch of radio amateurs who are musicians got together and formed this band, and they rewrote the lyrics of a lot of popular songs so that they fit ham radio. They were pretty funny.
Yeah, but you know, to be fair, that's a pretty niche market. You know, I mean, most people are not going to understand what we're doing.
Yeah.
You know? But it's fun, and we play at this giant ham radio convention in Dayton, Ohio every couple of years or so. And, you know, it's a big deal. There's like 35,000 people that show up to this thing. And, you know, whenever we play in one of the hospitality suites at this giant convention, there's, you know, several hundred people there, you know, so it's for what that is, that's a big deal. You know, but that's definitely like big fish in a small pond kind of stuff, because, you know, most people are not going to care about that. But to get back to your story, or your question rather, this very long-winded answer. So I decided that it was time to leave Connecticut, and this was, you know, early 2019. And I started doing all the stuff that I needed to do to prep for my move. And one of those things was, one day I saw, you know, I follow Jay on Facebook, and, you know, we've known each other for, you know, literally since the mid 1980s. You know, I would go to all the Otis shows that I could back then. and help tape them and stuff like that. You know, it was fun, had a good time. And
Thank God you did that, by the way.
oh, well, you know, to be fair, the bulk of the Otis and the Elevators recordings were done by a guy everybody knows here in town, Jeff Appleby. So Jeff deserves the credit for I think he recorded damn near every Otis and the Elevators show at Mabel's, which
He's
is
listed on all those archive.org recordings.
yeah.
He's having recorded them.
Yep. So Jeff Appleby gets the lion's share of the credit for doing that. He really stepped up. And so I was watching Jay's feed on Facebook, and he said, "Oh, I'm thinking about getting a band together." And so I messaged him and I said, "Hey Jay, I'm moving back to town and I play drums." And he didn't know that I played drums. He only knew me from playing my Latin percussion, my congas and my shakers and all that kind of stuff. And I'll never forget, the first thing he wrote to me was, "Are you any good?" And yeah, so I sent him some links to some of the stuff that I'd done in Connecticut, and he's like, "Well, you sound like you might be okay. Why don't you let me know when you get in town, and we'll get something together." So I think I'd been in town like 4 days, and this was in June of 2019. And I take my kid over, and there's Jay in his living room, and Jim's got all of his stuff set up, and he's like, "Okay, so let's play this song." And we started playing, and instantly it just felt right. Like, I mean, literally from the first note, it just felt great. And we played that song, and Jay didn't say anything. And then he said, "Okay, well, let's play this other one." And so we played another song, and like after the end of that second song, Jay's like, "Well, I think we got it." And that was it. That was the big audition to play. And we didn't have a name or anything like that. Silverweed, it's kind of funny. Silverweed was my doing, and everybody thinks it's about old guys smoking weed, which there may be some truth to that. I can neither confirm nor deny that. But honestly, I got the name. I was trying to find something that represented the prairie of Illinois, because that was the kind of stuff that we were aiming for, like that roots Americana rock country kind of sound. And silverweed is a native plant to Southern Illinois, and it just seemed to fit. So honest to God, that's the real origin of the name of the band. It has nothing to do with old hippies getting high. but it certainly is convenient.
Yeah, I really love that's where the name came from, and
where it came from. Yep.
And yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, that's great. So, but why do you have a horse as your profile icon, like kind of a?
Yeah, so the logo is it's bastardized from a painting from the early 1900s. And I saw that I was looking for something cowboy related, because, we're playing country rock music, and I wanted something that, looked cowboy-ish. And I found that, and I thought, wow, that's fantastic. I mean, this guy, like, if you zoom in on this cowboy, I mean, he's riding this horse, and this horse is like, they're going full tilt boogie on this horse, and the horse's nostrils are flaring, and the horse looks all pissed off, and the cowboy has got he's got this Wilford Brimley look to him, and it just seemed to be like, okay, that's the guy, I want that. And then I was just, I was the guy who was doing all the graphics for this stuff, and I was literally just goofing off in Photoshop, and I started pulling a whole bunch of things together, and I thought, wait, we're doing this cowboy music, this cowboy rock and roll, but it's really spacey and kind of out there, like the Grateful Dead, so I wanted something that would juxtapose cowboys with outer space. And so I just stumbled across that idea, and that's, we've got this cowboy riding down a mountain range, and then, the earth is in the background. So very clearly this cowboy is not on Earth. So there's your space cowboy Silverweed thing.
I love how all that came together, and finding that out, like how you put together the logo to go with the band, to go with the the name, to go with the I love it. Love
it's
it.
Very, much like the music, a lot of this is very, very improvised. I get an idea in my head. Oh, let's try this. Let's try that. Well, that didn't work. Let's take it this direction. Well, that didn't work either. How about if we do this thing instead? Oh, okay, that has promise. And if I feel like, I'm not a huge graphic designer by any stretch of the imagination. That's not really my skill set, but I can do posters for bands and stuff like that. That's cool. And I think that if you just have an open mind and, just see where ideas pop up and percolate and, check them out. Is it worth it? Maybe, maybe not. Let's see where this road goes. And so I approach that the same way that I try to approach the music. I just want to see where things go. And like I said, sometimes it'll be absolutely mind blowing, and other times, it'll be a total flat tire. And, to me, it's worth taking that risk.
So I think I have only, because your logo really stuck out with me, and the name.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't go there where everybody else went with the name. I was like, Silverweed, I figured it must have something to do with, the horse,
right?
Because your logo was like that. So I'm like, I don't know. But so I'm glad to hear that story. It's not too often that we ask, or we're even interested in, like, where'd you get your logo at? But another band that we did ask that was Boxcar Graffiti, because they had that symbol, which means family or something. It represents the three brothers. So there's always a story. There's always a way. And rarely is it haphazardly, we just thought this was cool. So I like that you told that story about that logo and the name.
Thanks.
And so you play monthly, you said, at the Rose Bowl?
We play right now. We've got a monthly gig at the Rose Bowl. We play once a month. It's the third Tuesday of each month, at least Tuesday, as of February 2023. The Rose Bowl, every summer they open up the tent in the parking lot and have shows outside. So as of now, we are playing every third Tuesday. That may change once the weather gets better and the tent opens.
Okay.
We'll have to see what the Rose Bowl has available for us.
But currently through the winter, that's what's happening.
That is our home base, our home away from home.
Yeah. So yeah, everyone, if you want to catch these guys, it's every third Tuesday currently at the Rose Bowl.
Right. Now, I will say that there is actually an exception to that rule this month. We are actually playing in February. We're playing on Sunday, February 26th, because there is a special event going on the third Tuesday of this month. So for February 2023, we are playing on Sunday, February 26th at the Rose Bowl from 7 until 9-ish.
Okay, and then March it goes back to.
Correct. March 21st would be our date in March, right? Okay,
great. So I'm glad to hear that you guys are having a good time with this. You're able to implement your original music in with the covers and the type of music that you're playing. And, all I got to say is that, just watching that video, I was like, oh, shoot, man, that's good stuff, you guys.
Thanks.
And it's a lot. When you said, like, you have these, different, because was it this band that you said, somebody that plays the trumpet?
Oh no, it's a trombone player, actually.
Trombone, okay.
So here's the hybridization, I guess I'll call it, for want of a better word. So I also play in this other band, Spaceport, and Spaceport is a relatively new group that's been together about a year. And Spaceport is 1970s and 1980s jazz fusion, and so it's this interesting mix of jazz and rock. So if you go back to, your 1970s, 1980s LPs, think like Weather Report, Herbie Hancock and the Headhunters, Return to Forever, that kind of stuff. Jaco Pastorius, that kind of amalgam of jazz and rock from the 70s and early 80s. That's what Spaceport is all about. That's a 7-piece band. We got a couple of horn players in it, and one of the horn players is a very fine gentleman by the name of Kyle Hunt, who is our trombone player in Spaceport. And we asked him, hey, you want to sit in with Silverweed and just see what happens here? And, Kyle is up for any adventure, musical or otherwise. And so he grabbed the bull by the horns and he's like, absolutely, let's see what happens. And so, Kyle came and he sat in with us for a couple of gigs, and the results have been really, really fun. So that's one example of bringing in other musicians that you normally would not play with, and just trying to see how all of that can fit together without stepping on anybody's toes. And, Kyle, he's a grad student in the U of I jazz program. He's been playing trombone forever. He can sight read, he can do anything. And we are very lucky to have somebody of his caliber sitting in with Silverweed.
And was Spaceport before Silverweed?
No.
After.
No, actually, this is a funny story. So Silverweed had a gig in, that was about a year ago, I guess. We had a gig at the Rose Bowl in January of 22, and it was on the books and everything was fine. And a few days before the gig, somebody got sick, and they couldn't, we had to cancel the gig, and with super short notice. And I reached out to Charlie at the Rose Bowl and I said, Charlie, give me a couple of days. I will put together something to fill that slot so you don't have to do it. And I reached out to several musicians that I'd gotten to know at the Rose Bowl. Every Wednesday, they have an open jazz jam on Wednesday nights. And I was going there, at this point, it was actually on Tuesday nights, but I was going there and hanging out in the jazz jam, and I was bringing my congas with me. And I've been around jazz for a super long time, but it's not something that I've ever formally studied. So going to the jazz jam was a way for me to start playing jazz on my congas and other percussion to supplement the drummer, because I'm not a jazz drummer. I would really wish I was, but I'm not. That takes.
Is there a vast difference in a jazz drummer?
A jazz drummer has to basically, a rock drummer, a blues drummer, if you can lay down a solid groove and keep pocket time, you're good. A jazz drummer needs to be able to read a chart and know the arrangements of a jazz piece in order to accent certain hits and fills to pull off that piece of music. Oftentimes in jazz pieces, not to say this doesn't happen in rock and roll too, but oftentimes in jazz pieces, the time signature will change, the rhythmic style will change. You'll go from a straight ahead swing beat to something that's like 6/8.
Fresh does a lot of that.
Yeah. So a drummer of that caliber really needs to be up on their stuff. And I just don't have the music theory under my belt in order to pull all of that stuff off. And so, and besides all of that, frankly, I just, I started off music playing Latin percussion. There was a guy in town from Ghana in West Africa in the 1980s named Oscar Sule, and he was an artist in residence at the U of I, and he started an African a Ghanaian style of music called high life, and he had like all the top jazz players in town in the 1980s that were in that band, including Jeff Helgeson, one of the great trumpet players here in town.
Yeah.
And he started offering introductory drumming classes at Parkland, and I signed up for that immediately. That was something that I definitely wanted to learn more about. So I've been interested in hand percussion, Latin percussion, African percussion, Brazilian percussion, stuff like that, going way back to the mid 1980s. So I wanted to learn how I could use those tools in a jazz environment. And there's plenty of people who have done that, but it's not something that I ever formally studied. So going to the jazz jam was a way for me to start getting my feet wet in that area. The jazz jam is very open. Lots of guys from the U of I School of Music hang out there. It's very welcoming. It's very open. It's a place where if you're serious about wanting to learn jazz, that's where you can go and, get your feet wet. So hanging out there was where I met all of these players for this pickup gig to fill in for the canceled Silverweed gig, and it was just supposed to be this one-off show. You know, I built Sean Kutzko and Friends. I built it, you know, there was like no expectation of anything. And we got done with the gig and everybody was like, wow, that was fun. We should, like, you know, can we do this more? And so that was the roots of Spaceport. We started off, we played a few gigs for a few months, known as the Groove Lemons. And then for ties to local CU history, we changed our name to Spaceport, because Spaceport obviously was the big arcade on Green Street. And all of us, well, not all of us, but several people in the band spent a lot of money there in the 80s and 90s, pumping quarters into those video machines, playing video games back then. And so we decided, you know, in homage to that place, we would change the name of the band to Spaceport.
That's where, okay, because I knew Groove Lemons,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I knew that, and I followed, because I follow you on Instagram.
Right.
And yeah, I had seen that Groove Lemons quite often. So that's been changed or transformed into Spaceport now.
Correct. That was as of July of 22. So we've been playing under the moniker Spaceport for 9 months or so.
It is, I'm telling you, Sean, you're blowing my mind with this timing. Because I'm just like, it seems like I just seen that on Instagram like a few months ago.
Well, see, this is the byproduct of being, you know, a self-proclaimed scholar of Grateful Dead dates, because I've got all these dates and facts and figures stuck in my head. And so, like, I just memorize dates and times. You know, I'm a nut for baseball statistics too. So I guess I just lean in that direction. I don't know.
Well, you're coming into your baseball season now.
I know. I'm real happy.
Oh yeah.
I think you guys did a sorghum song at least once.
Right, we did actually. So that was at my insistence. So for those who don't know, back in the 80s, back in the Nature's Table days, you know, Nature's Table, the big jazz club on Goodwin Street, right across from Krannert Center, there was a
Here
group,
where I am now.
right. There was a group that played in the 80s and 90s called Sorghum, and Sorghum was unbelievable. They were so damn good. It was a guy named Russell Cheatham on a Hammond B3 organ, guy named Chuck Tripp on guitar, a saxophone
He comes
player
back
named,
to town every once in a while.
every now and then. Yep.
Every now and then.
Guy named Scott Frillman, who was a young kid at that point in time on primarily on tenor sax. And this amazing drummer named Walter Hines. His nickname was Jelly because he was just so flexible and grooving. I mean, his pocket was so deep and strong. He was amazing. He just passed away a few months ago, unfortunately, which was very sad. That was a big blow to the community here. But those guys, they were playing this jazz funk, delicious stuff. And it was just, it had a major impact on me because I was super young at that point in time. I was like 16 years old, you know, when I first heard these guys. You know, I may have snuck into Nature's Table to purchase a beer underage, you know, that may have happened. Those guys, like, I'd never heard a B3 like that before. And it just, you know, like a B3 will just grab you by the throat and just be like, listen. You know, and man, Russell could play. And so they had an original tune that they did back then called Emulsified Bird Jank. And it was super funky, and the melody is really weird. And but it's got this solid pocket to it. And I said, I want to play that. I want to honor these guys. And the guys in Spaceport were like, yeah, okay, let's give it a shot. And they do a great job with it. And I couldn't be happier. And there were a couple of folks at that first gig where I broke that out, and there were a couple of folks from the Sorghum days who were like, oh yeah. Mm-hmm. So that was a big hit. We still break that out every now and then.
Let me get this right. Did you say that this guy plays an organ?
Hammond B3 organ. Yep.
I don't know what that is. Hammond. Boy. I know what a Hammond organ is. What's a B3?
B3 is a particular style of organ that was popular in like blues and jazz in the 1950s, 1960s. The Allman Brothers, Greg Allman played a Hammond B3 organ in the Allman Brothers. Like, you've heard live at the Fillmore East, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so the organ sound that Greg Allman gets on Hot Lanta and In Memory of Elizabeth Reed, that's a Hammond B3 organ.
Roger Perlman has a B3. He calls it the Slammin' Hammond.
I love
There is no sound on earth like a Hammond B3, because part of the charm of a Hammond B3 is you've got all these stops like a regular organ does, and so you can manipulate the sound, using various built-in effects like most organs have. But the thing that makes a Hammond B3 special, or most Hammond organs, frankly, for that matter, is it has a speaker called a Leslie speaker. And a Leslie speaker is this giant cabinet, and it's a speaker that spins around in a circle, and you can vary the rate at which that speaker cone spins around. So you get this wah, 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 kind of sound to it.
Wow.
And it is an absolutely unique sound. There is no other instrument like a Hammond B3. And playing behind one of those as a drummer, man, you can't help but play pocket when you're playing behind one of those things.
Was this your first time hearing somebody play a Hammond?
Yep. When I heard sorghum for the first time in 1984, that was the first time I had ever heard I'd heard organs in church and stuff like that, the Switched On Bach album, using synthesizers, and they had organ sounds on that for classical music, and, toccata and fugue and D minor and that kind of stuff. I'd heard organ before, but I'd never heard it like that. And this was jazz, funk, gritty soul organ music, and I'm like, what is that?
Yeah, and you found out, didn't you?
I sure as hell did. And I haven't turned away from it since. That stuff, like, I love playing behind an organ player now. Like, it's just there's nothing else like it. There are certain musical instruments that, for me, I'm sure other drummers or other musicians would have similar opinions, but for me, playing behind an organ, playing behind a good horn section, like 4 or 5 horns, or playing behind a pedal steel, like, each one of those instruments are very unique, and each one of those gives you a different feeling being a drummer behind that instrumentation. But the bottom line is, like, all 3 of them make you go, yeah, in some fashion. And I just love it. I just love it.
I love your description of things. I really do. It's really, I wish I could describe things the way you do. I'm going to have to check that out. I will. Yeah. I definitely have to YouTube that and the Allman Brothers and the whole thing and figure. And I'm sure I've heard it. I
guarantee you've heard it. You just didn't know what it was.
I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
So thanks for that little education and lesson.
Sure.
So I'm not going to say when, because obviously my time's way off. But you started working at Krannert. You were at the U of I.
Right. So
correct?
When I moved back to town in June of 2019, I needed a job, because everybody needs a job. So I worked, I was in the kitchen at the Common Ground Food Co-op for a couple of months, and hats off to the folks up there in the kitchen, because I learned a whole lot about cooking in a couple of months, and that was cool, and I liked that a lot. But an opportunity opened up as a video tech at Geese College of Business, and they needed somebody to help with their delivery of online MBA programs. So what would happen is the MBA instructor would go into these studios and they would teach a class remotely. And it was a live session over Zoom, just like this, except they used a whole bunch of video editing software that made it a professional production, rather than just sitting in front of a camera like this, like we're doing for this Zoom interview. There was a whole production that was involved that made it more along the lines of your evening local newscast than having just people sitting in front of a camera like we're doing now for Zoom. So we had graphics and we had, you know, extra audio files, and we'd play video examples that the instructor would bring in of, you know, like I want to play 5 minutes of this lecture on YouTube, you know. So we'd get all of that stuff queued up, and we'd switch it all and make it seamless and make it a real production. And, you know, anywhere from, depending on the class that was being taught, anywhere from 30 students would be in the Zoom session learning this stuff, all the way up to 500, depending on the class.
Wow.
So, you know, there was some pressure. I mean, this was a live broadcast, and, you know, students are paying a lot of money to learn their MBA at Geese College of Business, so it better be good. So, you know, so I've been in broadcasting, I've been in radio for 30 some odd years, and I've been editing audio forever, but I really didn't have that much video experience under my belt. So for me, that was a learning experience. And then a couple of years later, after doing that, great gig, loved working at Geese, lots of fun people. Interestingly, my boss at Geese College of Business was none other than John Tubbs, who is now our bass player in Silverweed. So there's a small world for you.
It is a small world.
Yeah. But an opportunity arose that Krannert Center was looking for an assistant communications director. And I have a background in public relations and broadcasting and script writing and all of that kind of stuff and promotions. And I thought, what the hell, I'll apply. And I got the job. So,
Got it.
You know,
Congratulations. Because I know you were, when you posted it, you know, you could just feel the excitement.
Well, being able to be a part of a communications team at, you know, arguably the best performing arts center in downstate Illinois, you know, I get to help promote all of the performing arts that come through that building. You know, that building has been there since 1969. Unbelievable amounts of talent have come through that building. And, you know, just to be able to help promote the art scene in this town in some capacity, whether it's international acts that come through music, theater, and dance, whether it's local talent from our own departments of theater, Department of Dance, Department of Music, the Lyric Theater in Illinois that focuses primarily on musicals and opera, that kind of stuff. Being able to promote all of that type of local talent. We also have the Uncorked series at Krannert, where local musicians that don't necessarily have a tie to the university can petition to play, and we set up in the lobby and play. You know, that's going on right now too. Being able to promote all of that is just, it's a dream come true. I mean, I was doing public relations for a couple of nonprofits out on the East Coast, and, you know, that was fun and it was entertaining and it was something I was interested in until it wasn't. And, you know, I got real tired of the 60 and 70-hour work weeks and, you know, having to like make sure that, you know, I looked presentable and, you know, I couldn't do this, you know, like I wanted to do this and I couldn't. So, so eventually I just said, you know, I did the East Coast, I checked it out. It's time to go home. And, you know, that's how I ended up back. You know, I ended up in Silverweed, ended up in Krannert, ended up learning more about jazz, ended up with the Spaceport guys. You know, I mean, like everything has come into alignment, you know, and now, you know,
it's because you know, coming back to Illinois, where most people are, I'm going to get out of Illinois,
right?
But you coming back seemed to just like boom, boom, boom. You know, you're doing all the things you love.
Everything, you know. I have no complaints. I mean, like, well, I can't say that. I mean, I guess the only complaint that I have is like, I've got too many fingers in too many pies. So I'm going to have to, like, you know, prioritize stuff and figure out what's something's going to have to give here in a little bit.
It's hard not to do that though.
I know. I'm like, I'm having a blast, you know.
I can be part of this and I can be a part of this. And, you know, and it seems like everything that you're a part of is doing well and you're doing well in it. So
knock on wood. You know, I mean, came back here, you know, I found my life partner here, you know, Nancy.
Yeah, Nancy, who is also a beautiful,
skilled singer, super skilled singer in her own right. You know, she's been in a bunch of bands here in town for the last 10, 12 years. You know, she's starting to branch out now and she's working on doing jazz, you know, jazz vocals now. And she, you know, she's got a gig coming up tomorrow, actually Valentine's Day at the Rose Bowl, and she's playing with you know, like some of the best jazz players in this town. You know, Kurt Reeder's going to be on piano. Sam Olson is this phenomenal bass player who just rolled into town like a year ago. He's unbelievable. And then the great Max Osawa on drums. And I mean, like, this is a standard classic jazz vocal quartet, and they are going to show up at the Rose Bowl tomorrow, and Nancy's going to deliver the goods. And, you know, I mean, you can't ask for more than that.
That's exciting. What time is that? Do you know?
That's at 5 o'clock, 5 to 7.
Oh, good. It's an early night.
Show, early Valentine's show. You know, bring your sweetie, come on and check it out.
Well, I mean, even if you don't have a sweetie, show up.
Absolutely. I guarantee you there will be a couple of songs in there about heartbreak too, because that's part of the deal. So, but
I mean, I show up. I'll show up.
Yeah, please do.
My camera, like that's my thing.
Right on. But yeah, so you know, we got that going. Yeah, we actually met at a Silverweed gig.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the story of that, I will gladly tell this story. So the story of that is Silverweed was playing at the Rose Bowl in September of 2020. It was our first gig in 9 months because of the pandemic. And I was, you know, I mean, I think we did like one live stream from Jay's driveway, you know, in all of this time, you know, like, oh my God, we got a real gig, you know, like they're opening back up. They got a gig. We got a gig, you know. So we practiced the hell out of, you know, getting our stuff back up to speed because, you know, I mean, we hadn't seen each other because of the pandemic. So, so we practiced like hell, and we got the gig in September, and, you know, Jesse was sitting in on that gig, and I was so happy to be playing that I made a whole batch of these cookies that I make, these lime white chocolate chip cookies that melt in your mouth, and they're just oh so good. And I just baked like 3 dozen of these cookies.
For playing tonight, I'm making me some cookies.
That's exactly it. I'm like, hey, you know, let's. I'm bringing treats, you know, and I was just passing these things out, and I handed her a cookie, and she's like, oh, thanks. You know, I had no idea who she was. And later on, in the middle of the set, near the end of the second set, Jay asks her to stand up and sing backing vocals on one of our tunes. And, you know, I'm playing drums. I'm like, oh, who's this? You know, and, you know, we get to the chorus, and she starts singing the chorus in perfect harmony. And we lock in with this 3-part harmony in about 2 seconds. I'm like, wow, she can sing. And, you know, and so I like, you know, the gig went great. It was a great time. Me being me, I record everything. I've recorded everything since 1985, you know? So I clean up the gig, and I put it through production and all that stuff, and I distribute it to all the guys in the band. And I'm like, you know, Nancy sang on this thing. I should send it to her so she can hear what she sounded like. So I sent it to her, and, you know, we just started talking, and, you know, she's like, I need your cookie recipe. So like, okay. So she's a baker. She's a hardcore baseball fanatic. She is a deadhead. She is extremely smart and articulate. She's a skilled musician, and she's just a super nice human being.
It's perfect for you.
It's like, hello. So yeah.
She's a retired attorney too.
She's a retired attorney. She worked for 20 years in Champaign and Vermilion and Douglas counties, doing primarily public defender work. She did a lot.
I've known her for quite a while, by the way.
She I've seen her at the Iron Post mostly is where I would see her.
Right.
And just, you know, blow me away with her vocals. And she's an outdoors person. She likes to.
She is a serious national parks fanatic and a hardcore hiker, like not just going out hiking on a trail. You know, she'll load up the backpack and she'll go backcountry for, you know, 5-6 days. You know, she's planning a big trip out to California to finish up the John Muir Trail, and she's gonna summit Mount Whitney. You know, so she's serious, man.
Oh, Nancy. Yeah. That is a great story. What a great connection too. So yeah, that's perfect. It's just so perfect. You two look perfect together. Seriously.
we take great pride in being that couple.
Yeah. You are that couple. It's very cool.
Everybody is like, oh God, I can't believe they're doing that. You know, like we like kissing in public. It's fun.
Yeah. Well, good for you. Good for you. And you're both just like, very talented too. So that's gotta be, I'm so happy for you, Sean. Seriously, to move back to Illinois and have all these good, thank God. It's so good to hear good, uplifting, inspiring stories of, you getting to the places you want to be, whether it's on purpose or not,
Well, I would say in my particular case, it's probably a combination of both. I mean, I have spent a great deal of time living, to quote Little Feat, as a leaf in the wind. And it's nice to be able to, now that I'm a little older, it's nice to be able to settle down and start pursuing things with purpose rather than just seeing which way the wind blows. It's nice to I can take that spirit of seeing which way the wind blows and concentrate it into certain things now instead of an overall life approach. So it
might be a little choosier over your wind.
Exactly.
Oh, the wind's blowing this way, okay. Instead of just wherever the wind's blowing me.
Right.
I'm gonna go with this one.
But it's I'm so grateful for a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, there's no way that I would have ever predicted Spaceport coming together. I mean, the guys in Spaceport they're some of the best musicians in town. I mean, you got Mark White on guitar, you got Mitchell Killough on bass. Like Mitchell Killough plays anything with everyone. He's unbelievable. James Mauck is, in my opinion, probably the best drummer in town.
Yeah, James is incredible.
He's unbelievable.
Drummer too.
Yep. He does stuff that I can't even fathom. Like I simply do not have, I don't think of ideas that he comes up with, and I don't have the physical dexterity to pull them off. He is simply unbelievable.
Yeah.
I remember one of the first times Dropsy played.
Yeah.
He had this drum set. It was like 11 or 12 drums and 11 or 12 cymbals. I'm looking at this thing and thinking, oh, that's like Neil Peart.
Yeah.
He does do some, because we had him at Original Artist Night.
Mm-hmm.
And he did something with the front of I can't even remember, but I know it was crazy. I was like, what is he doing? And so we videotaped it and got photos of it and stuff. But I was like, I've never seen anybody do anything like this.
Yeah, I have nothing but respect for James Mauck. He is simply amazing.
Yeah.
Just like being in his presence, you pick stuff up, like musicians, musicians pay attention to other musicians all the time. And, imitation is the greatest form of flattery, as they say. And, I've picked up some stuff from him, but I can't do what he does. I can't. So it's nice to be able to glom on to certain things. And, there have been several moments that we've had together in Spaceport where, we will respond to what another instrument is doing, like the guitar solo, like the guitarist will play a certain lick, or one of the horn players will do this thing. And, there have been several times where James and I will respond in kind on percussion, lick for lick. And I love serendipitous moments like that, where, we're just both in lockstep. You can't communicate about that. It just happens.
It happens. Yeah.
And you have to be open to that kind of playing in order for stuff like that to happen. Like, you can't rehearse it. It either works or it doesn't.
Yeah,
and I love that James and I can do that. I want to give credit to the other guys in Spaceport though. So our keyboardist is this dude named David McEathron, super young guy, jazz student here in town, amazing keyboardist. He's got such a great touch. He's phenomenal. And those four guys, Mark, Mitchell, James, and David, as Zach already alluded to, they play in a group called Dropsy, and they do very, very complex, adventurous, original music. And you should go check them out because they will blow your mind. But the horn players that we've got in Spaceport are new guy in town, relative new guy in town. Nathan Carmen is playing alto and a little tenor here and there. And Kyle Hunt, the trombonist, both of those guys play with effects pedals. So they're playing electric sax and electric trombone in Spaceport. And it's fun to hear the things that they come up with all of their effects. And we used to have a guy in the band named Kavi Naidu, who's a long time sax player here in town. He's moved on to greener pastures. He's up in Chicago now, and he's getting ready for grad school up there. But he's got family down here, and so he'll sit in with us whenever he's in town and we happen to have gigs. So sometimes there will be as many as 8 people on stage, and we're playing this jazz fusion that there's no way I ever would have predicted that I would be in a band playing this kind of stuff. And these guys, like I am the least talented guy in this band. These guys are just amazing, and it's such a treat to be able to play with them. They're phenomenal.
So Sean, let's get back to Krannert for just a minute.
Okay.
Because if, like you mentioned, some of the local bands playing that are not associated with the U of I, who would they contact? You? Would they go to the Krannert website?
Yeah. So if you go to the Krannert website and you look up Krannert Uncorked, you will find there should be an email address on the search, on the page that pops up in the search, in your search on KrannertCenter.com. And that's how you can reach out to apply for a slot on Uncorked. Now, Uncorked, it's currently running through late April, I believe. And then I believe it always takes the summer off. And then it'll pick up again in the fall.
So it's happening now, or
it is happening right now. Well, not this exact second, but right. But no, they are booking bands. I know the Painkillers just got booked for a slot. Let's see who else got booked for a slot. The Afro Cube, or the Afro, not the Afro Cuban. What is it? The
Afro
Latin?
D and Global Soundwaves.
No, although they've played there. It's the Afro Caribbean Jazz Collective. They just got They just got booked there too. They're celebrating 5 years of doing their thing. And, those guys, every single player in the Afro Caribbean Jazz Collective, they are top shelf, first call jazz players in this town, and they lay it down. So if you like, your music with a little bit of fire, come check those guys out wherever they're playing, because they are crazy good.
So to play Uncorked, where at is that where you come in, and it's that kind of
The lobby.
Yeah, it's the stage, and it's the stage in the lobby. And those are Uncorked are always on Thursday afternoons from 5 until 7. And those are free to the public.
That's what I was going to ask next.
Yep, so it's free to the public, and the Stage 5 bar is open, so you can get a beverage of your choice and a couple of small little snacky kind of items if you are feeling a bit peckish during the show. Nothing too serious. It's not like the Intermezzo Cafe is not open during Krannert Uncorked, but they have some light snacks that they make available for folks, like cheese plates and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. I love this. Okay, I'm glad to know more about it. It's on our event list, isn't it, Zach? I don't recall.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I put it on there. They have all sorts of bands play too. TVD and Blind Justice played there when they were still together.
They've been doing it for a long time. I mean, I'm in some ways I'm still learning about this because I've only been at Krannert for coming up on a year now. So I'm there's a lot of moving parts at Krannert, so I'm still learning a bunch of stuff. But Uncorked is the main way that they reach out to the community at large and offer a venue for local musicians here in town to play at the Performing Arts Center. I mean, it's very important to Krannert Center to make sure that we are a solid member of the community that offers opportunities for musicians, dancers, theater people of all levels. It's not just for touring artists and university students. It's available for everybody, and Krannert Uncorked is one of the ways that we reach out to the community at large.
What about the Guitar Fest?
Elnora is coming up this year. Elnora is every other year. And this year, it's going to be in September this year. I don't have any information about anybody who's signed up to play yet. I don't have Like so my role is to promote things that are booked. I have nothing to do with actually booking any of the.
Oh, okay. So your role is what's already booked.
I'm the PR guy. I'm the communications guy. I have absolutely nothing to do with booking talent at Krannert Center.
Okay. That's helpful.
Yep.
So yeah, well, keep us connected with that. I know we do follow Krannert. I know on Instagram for sure, because I'll see their posts and I think we do Facebook, but I think it's from my page. So I'll have to go to our page and make sure that we are following that. Because when you follow someone, here's something everybody should know. You're automatically going to go to the default follow. So if you want to make sure you don't miss anything, you need to either make them your favorites or put them on, you need to take them off the default.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
If you want to absolutely see whatever they have going on and not miss anything, you got to take those steps. Otherwise, it's going to fall right into default. You may some days see what's going on. You may some days not. So that's a little tip there.
Right.
Yeah. So
I'm the guy right now who's handling all of Krannert Center's social media. So any posts that you see from, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, coming from Krannert Center, that's me. So
great. Fantastic. Yeah. Well, that's reliable and trustworthy. And yeah, well, when we get done with this, I'll go right to our page and go, we're following Krannert. I hope we are. Surely to God we are. Yeah, so then that's fantastic, Shauna. I'm glad everything's looking really, really well for you.
Future's so bright, I gotta wear shades.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you came back to Illinois. Actually, I'm really glad you came back to Illinois. That benefits all of us.
Well, I this is my third time back. I left 2 times before, and the Champaign-Urbana vortex is very strong. But I like it here. Every time, like when I was out on the East Coast, this weird thing happened, and I would fly back to visit, my mom and family and stuff like that. And I always go Hartford to O'Hare, and then, hop a puddle jumper from O'Hare down here to Champaign. And it didn't matter what season it was. It could be winter, summer, didn't matter. We get down to like south of Kankakee in this little puddle jumper, and I'd look out the window and I'd see all of the, this grid of all of the farmers' fields.
Mm-hmm.
And there was something that absolutely tugged at me from, deep inside my heart. And I'm like, what is this? What's going on here? I didn't even expect this, but, I was born and raised in Urbana. This is home to me. And I guess there was just something about it that said, man, you need to come back here because this is where you belong. And, I ignored that for a real long time because I was out on the West Coast for a while. I was out on the East Coast for a while.
Weren't you in Springfield for a while?
Right. I finished up my bachelor's degree at what is now the University of Illinois at Springfield, but I was there from 92 to 94.
Yeah, because I think I drove over there to help you with an antenna once.
You did. I remember that. Yep.
You and Zach, it cracks me up. I love it.
Oh, yeah. We still help each other with antenna stuff, But yeah, I was in like the last summer, I had it at what was then Sangamon State University. Now it's the University of Illinois at Springfield. But the last semester there was the spring of 94, and I basically fulfilled all of my credits. I had this like work study thing that I needed to do. I was pursuing a degree in mass media, focusing on broadcasting. I wanted to pursue a career at National Public Radio at that point. And so I'm working at the NPR station on campus, and I'm like helping out with, I'm like doing a jazz show a couple of nights a week. And I'm helping the program director and the music director, learning those roles and getting all that stuff down. And that was pretty much it. And then I had a student position outside of all of that at the radio station where I was just like a board operator, control operator kind of guy. And I was playing in 4 different bands that semester too. So all I did was media and music. That was all I did for an entire semester. And it was the best semester of my life. It was great.
You didn't feel a sense of Even with music now, I mean, obviously you've been doing this a long time, but you never felt a sense of, let me take a break from this?
Oh no, absolutely. I did take a break from it for several years. So I guess I'll come out a little bit here. So I'm a recovering alcoholic. I haven't had a drink in 20 years.
Oh, good for you.
What you know, there was a point in time where it was when I first got sober, and I could not, I was in a band at the time, and the guys in the band were, you know, they wanted to be very supportive of me, but they, you know, they like every time we get together for practice, it just turned into a party. And I couldn't be around that, you know, that early after trying to get sober. And so I walked away from that band, which really sucked, but you know, I had to do that for myself. And I didn't play music in public for 5 years. So I took time to, you know, basically get my head on straight, because I was pretty out there for a while. And I needed that break. I'd still play guitar, you know, I'd still play acoustic guitar and you know, and strum my favorite tunes and try some new stuff here and there. But I didn't play out in public for 5 years.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
And so then during that time is when you gave up the alcohol.
Yeah,
And
well, so I quit in 2003, and then I tried playing in a band for a while, and then it didn't work. So I was on a self-imposed music exile from 2004 to 2008.
yeah.
Yep.
Well, thankfully you recognized, I mean, because how old were you?
Oh God, 35, 36.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you recognized this is a problem.
Oh yeah. I mean,
And it
I knew for quite a while I was a mess. I just, you know, I didn't have the mental wherewithal or strength to do anything about it yet. So
yeah. There's plenty of there are a lot of musicians in our community that have come out and said, hey, I had this problem. This is what I did. I've been sober for, you know, so long. And it's so helpful to so many other people. And I myself in a personal situation, you know, somebody I love dearly went through severe alcohol and, you know, I mean, hospitalized. Somebody I love right now is going through that, being hospitalized.
It'll kill you, you know, it'll kill you.
I found I didn't know how much it will kill you until the doctor came back after running some blood, and because this went into the DTs things,
right?
You know, the severe DTs and the doctor came back and said, we're going to keep him for 7 days and on 3 different floors. And I'm like, holy smokes, you know, and he was like, coming off of alcohol can kill you.
Yeah.
Because you can come off of heroin, you can come off of smack, you can come off of, you know, all this stuff, and it possibly won't kill you. Coming off of alcohol, if you don't get the medical help or what you need, it can kill you.
Yeah, it sure can. It's, you know, don't mess around with it. It will, you know, it can kill you. A lot of people have died over that.
Yeah.
But it's socially acceptable, so, you know, it's no big deal, right? But you know, I'm not here, you know, I don't want to get into a situation where I'm going to be preaching, you know, that's not my thing, you know, but it's not something to be trifled with. You know,
exactly.
If you got a real problem, then, you know, take stock.
You need to do something.
Take stock.
Yes. I love that. Very well said. Yeah. So, and help from somebody on this side that watches somebody that you love go through it. There's so many mixed emotions because there's points where you want to let go and completely disengage from them and block them and not have any. And then
which is a really healthy thing to do.
Good for the mentality sometimes, for the mental health, for your own sake, you know, honestly, because it's difficult because you don't want to be an enabler. And in the beginning, it's so easy to be an enabler and not know that that's what you're doing because you love them so much. You want to help them, you know, get through. It's a tough lesson to learn.
The line gets very blurry when you're dealing with family members and very, very close friends. It gets very,
Yes.
very tough.
Yep. Yeah. And it's heartbreaking for the person that loves them, that's on the outside, that's looking in and trying to help or do whatever you can to help. As heartbreaking as the person that is the alcoholic that's going through it.
Mhm.
You know, they're busting their own heart and, you know, trying to heal up from that. And there's a lot of emotions. That's all. That's how I've been there, going through it again, watching somebody that I love very much. Good, young too. He's young, and so it's hard. But then you got like Garrett Gunner, who's 20 something years old, and began the band, and he's open about it in Ancient Ways, and realized I'm doing a lot of drinking and a lot of other stuff, and I can't do this. I cannot, I'm not going to do this. So he chose a place, got himself in there, and he's been sober. I think he just announced a year.
Good for him.
So, you know, and the willingness to come out and talk about it or say anything, because, you know, there's a lot of musicians that are like, I'm struggling, or I had been struggling with this and I quit drinking and it's hard, and, you know, but not that all bands or all musicians have that problem. Some can play in bars, have some drinks or whatever, and it not be a thing.
Well, you know, speaking for me personally, you know, it took me a long time before I would be comfortable to play in a bar. And, you know, I finally, you know, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of, you know, you got to put in the work to take a look at, you know, a whole bunch of stuff to try to figure out why you were doing all of this crazy stuff, you know. For me, it took me a long time to where I was feeling comfortable with being able to go into an establishment and play a gig and, you know, not have to drink. Now, fortunately, you know, I'm in a pretty solid space right now that I'm comfortable doing that. But every now and then, you know, it flares up, and, you know, like I'll have a bad day. You know, it's like, play the gig, get out of there. You know.
Yeah.
Now, you know, fortunately, the Rose Bowl is a place where I feel very, very comfortable. You know, that is a bar. It's not a dinner restaurant that serves alcohol. It's a bar. And I love playing there. The vibe there is just fantastic. And, you know, it's not a problem for me. It may be a problem for somebody else. Who knows? Depends on where their head is on any given particular day. But for
and
me,
your bandmates and your bandmates and friends and all of that, that understand that, I'm sure there's no pressure of,
not a peep.
I've noticed at the Rose Bowl, some places you go and you feel like there's something that they want you to buy a drink. There's something trying to compel you to buy a drink. I've never noticed that at the Rose Bowl.
The Rose Bowl has gone above and beyond the call of duty, making sure they have an incredible selection of non-alcoholic drinks that are super tasty. So
no, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's fantastic. You know, the Rose Bowl, you know, I'm sure that everybody has heard the name the Rose Bowl for decades, you know. But if you're not aware, the Rose Bowl has really undergone a major transformation in the last 5-6 years, and they are, I would say, in my opinion, they are the premier venue in Champaign-Urbana at this point, because they bring in rock solid talent. They've got people there who know what the hell they're doing. Most of them are gigging musicians themselves, so they understand what a musician needs who plays there, and they bust their ass to make sure that they can provide it. So, I mean, for me, the Rose Bowl is it. I love playing the Rose Bowl. It's great.
That's awesome. Are you going to play?
It's a comfortable place. It's a comfortable place on multiple levels. And that just doesn't happen very often. You know,
yeah.
The Table was a place like that. The Iron Post was a place like that. You know, for me, being able to play at the Rose Bowl brings back similar feelings of playing at Nature's Table back in the 1980s for me. And, you know, that just doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, I think you use the word comfortable, and I think that's important. Mm-hmm. That you're comfortable with where you're at and where you're playing and what's surrounding you. Nowadays, that's kind of crucial.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, any musician worth their salt will tell you that the environment that they're playing in and their general mental outlook on life is going to have a direct effect on the material and music that they're playing on any given night. You have a good night, you have a bad night. I didn't feel that one. I was having a crappy night. Stuff like that happens all the time in music and, lots of other creative ventures too. So being able to go to a place where you don't have to overthink a lot of those things about, well, I wonder what this place is like. I wonder what the clientele's like here. Like you don't like, I don't even think about that stuff. It's like, oh, hey, Charlie. Oh, hey, Kenna, how's it going? Yep, we're here to play a gig. What's happening? How you doing?
And Kenna runs the sound, right?
She runs the sound. Yeah, they do a great job.
Yeah, and we're talking about Kenna May, and she is, oh my God, an incredible artist. Just top quality vocals and original music and just everything. She
doesn't get nearly as much credit as I think she deserves, and
she's
I know that
just under the radar a little bit. She doesn't get that that kind of notoriety, I guess, or just being noticed so much. I know Zach and I have always thought she's just the,
she works hard.
Yes.
They do a very good job. I mean, I know that it like being a sound person in any venue is an extremely stressful position to have, because you got people rolling in 7 nights a week, and everybody's going to be different, and you got all sorts of different personalities that you're working with there, and you kind of have to be amateur psychiatrist in addition to a rock solid technician. And I know that I've upset him a couple of times, but hopefully it's not too bad. And it's a hard gig, and I think Kenna does a good job.
Yeah. She did, because I just watched her in action, doing the sound and all of that for a band that I had went to see there. And I was duly impressed, always impressed with her.
Especially when you've got one of those like multi-band weekends, like for like the Folk and Roots Festival.
Yeah, which just happened. Yeah.
Their winter weekend just happened a little, like it was a couple of weekends ago, Okay, we got 4 bands playing tonight and they're all very different, make it work. I don't want that job.
We are lucky. We have a huge array of music and musicians and all kinds of different types and genres and styles and personalities and just everything. It is so wonderful that we have all of that here.
Yep.
So Sean, it's been an absolute pleasure once again having you on our podcast. We should have you on every 6 months. No, has it been a year? You said told me that
it's been about a year. It's a bit.
I just cannot believe that. We'll have to have you on a year from now, and it'll seem like a few weeks for me. But it's been an absolute pleasure. We look forward to continuing to follow you and coming to hear you play and your different bands. We, of course, will have links on this podcast for anyone to be able to find you fairly quickly. And also I would encourage anyone that wants to play in the Encore.
Right.
Encore.
Yep.
Yeah, to go to the website and to do that process that you need to do to be able to play there. And
KrannertCenter.com.
And we will have that link on there as well.
Cool.
So tell Nancy we said hello, and you know what? We should have Nancy on.
I think that would be a hoot. You should do that.
Yeah. I will get a hold of her. We'll see if we can get her on schedule. So,
great. Thank you.
Until then, we'll see you online or live music.
Please come see Silverweed. Please come see Spaceport. Please come to the Rose Bowl and patronize them because they are great.
Yeah.
Yes. Well said. Good night.
Good night.
If you haven't checked it out yet, go to www.lookbeforeyoubook.live, a local listing of bands, venues, businesses that you can just like contact directly from the site. Go ahead, check it out, get listed. www.lookbeforeyoubook.live. We'll see you at the next podcast.